The scare had managed to weaponise trust itself. Panic didn't just stay behind closed doors, it put legitimate social services in an impossible position. Real social workers, doing their vital job of protecting vulnerable children, were suddenly met with fear and hostility. They were refused entry into homes where children were genuinely at risk. The very system designed to prevent harm was being paralysed by these phantoms who had stolen its identity. The scare had managed to weaponise trust itself. As the number of reports surged into the hundreds, police forces across the country knew they were dealing with something serious. This wasn't just a string of local disturbances, it felt like a nationwide event. In response, South Yorkshire Police launched Operation Childcare in 1990. It grew into a massive investigation, eventually involving 23 separate police forces, making it one of the largest of its kind in British history. An incident room was set up with dozens of officers whose sole job was to catalogue and connect the hundreds of sightings pouring in from all over the UK. But the investigation was a nightmare from the very beginning. These phantoms left behind almost no physical evidence. They were ghosts. They didn't force their way into homes, so there were no fingerprints from a break-in. Their visits were brief, and they vanished as quickly as they appeared. The descriptions of them, while consistent in terms of dress and manner, were often too generic to create a useful composite sketch. They were just a man in a suit or a well-dressed woman. Operation Childcare looked into over 250 separate reports, but the deeper they dug, the more baffling the case became. Police struggled to substantiate most of the claims, attributing many to rumour or misunderstandings amplified by the climate of fear. However, investigators remained convinced that a core number of the reports were absolutely genuine. In fact, police stated that 2 of the cases were the genuine article, though they never publicly elaborated on which cases these were or what made them so certain. Despite the massive resources poured into the operation, police were stumped. They had no suspects, no arrests, and most importantly, no clear motive. Why would an organised group go to such elaborate lengths only to back down the second they were challenged? If their goal was abduction, they were failing spectacularly. It just didn't add up. By 1994, with no new leads and no arrests made, both Operation Childcare and a similar unit in Scotland were quietly shut down. The phantoms had won. They had terrorised an entire nation and then simply melted away.